Hi, everybody. Give me a second to get my Instagram started, and we will start up this Q&A. Looking forward to talking with you about mind-body issues. Here we go. I wish there wasn't that delay, but there is. All right, we're going to see if we can work that out over time. Guys, it is great to see you. Welcome to Crushing Doubts Q&A, live most Thursdays at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific. Lots to talk about. We had my book launch, obviously, last week. I guess I shouldn't say obviously. Some people might not know that, but we did. Very exciting event. And let me get this off my screen. That's bothering me. Sorry. A very exciting event. And a lot of people have the book now. And in fact, Susan Serino was just saying, hi, Dan and Crushing Doubt family. I finally received the book today. Very exciting. So I did want to say, for people who are seeing these big delay times on Amazon, they're just estimating wrong. They're coming very fast. Most people are getting the books just fine. Everybody is actually in under a week. So it's a very exciting time. I don't know how many people are going to be at this event that have actually already read the book. There are people who got it on Kindle. And some people, you must be very fast readers, because one woman was like, I already read it. And she said she loved it, which is great. But I was like, wow, that's some fast reading. In any case, I want to say hi to some people. Then we'll talk about what we're doing here, which, of course, is to talk about mind-body issues. I will get into that in a second. Dorisa says, hi, Dan and everyone. Kasim says, hi, Susan, and hi, Dan and everyone. And Shelby Geyer says, I ordered mine today. Very excited about that, Shelby. Can't wait for you to read the book and see how that sinks in. So let's talk about what we're doing here. Now, as you guys know, I'm here to talk about mind-body symptoms. And the reason that I do it is that I've had them. And in fact, everybody has them. But I didn't really find out I did not find out how significant these things were going to be in my life until one day when I felt a twinge in my back. And I suddenly got worried, maybe this won't go away. And that worry just spiraled into worse and worse symptoms. And in the end, I suffered from 8 years, every single day, every single second. If you're doubting that maybe his back pain wasn't that bad, it was one of the worst things I've ever experienced. And it was there all the time. I had no sense that it was going to get better. And this is why I do these Q&As, is to well, it's why I do everything that I do, really. It's to give people the resources they need that I felt I would have needed, that I did need at that time. And one of those things, of course, is to get everybody in the world to understand mind-body experience so that we can not have people so isolated in their understanding. It took me 8 years to just discover Dr. John Sarno's work. That's ridiculous. That should not be the case. We should all know lots of people who know about this, and that is changing quite a bit. But that's part of what I'm here to do. Now, as far as this Q&A goes and why I do that, there were many times along the way, even after I discovered Sarno, where I just needed questions answered. And I couldn't feel confident that I could get better if those questions weren't answered. So Sarno says you've got to accept the diagnosis to get better. But to accept the diagnosis, you need to understand why it works. And so that's what we're here to do. I'm going to talk about my system that I developed that first was just to help me. But then I found that it helps lots and lots of people. And now it's a book, which I cannot wait for you all to read. Let me say hi to a couple other people, then we'll get into my system, and then we'll get into the questions. Rita, good to see you here. Laura Brown, thank you for joining us here. Steph T114, thank you for being here. Rita says, hi, Dan and everyone. Solitary Daughter says, ordered your book today, too. That's great. I cannot wait. I mean, this is such an exciting time, certainly for me, but I think it could be for all of us in a way, because we're going to start to talk about things with even more common language. You'll know exactly what I think about everything. So, you're going to keep the questions coming here, but a lot of the questions you're going to ask, they're going to be in this book, and then you'll have follow-up questions. So we'll get even deeper in our Q&As, and I'm very excited about that. So let me talk a little bit about the system. Many of you know it, so apologies for the review on it, though I do have to say reviewing this is always helpful. My system is called the 3-column system, and it derives its name from the fact that when I started working with people after I got better, I would tell people to take a sheet of paper and divide it into, you guessed it, 3 columns, and they are emotions, doubt, and power. I'm going to describe what these columns are, what they do, and how you can use them. The emotions column is for the onsets and upticks of symptoms. And this is important because in the mind-body field, people talk about how emotions can lead to symptoms, and that's true. But what they don't tend to say is that's usually the onsets and upticks of symptoms. It's not just emotions lead to symptoms. It's not only emotions that lead to symptoms. In fact, thinking, the wrong kind of thinking, doubt thinking can lead to symptoms. And in fact, that's the kind of thinking or the kind of mental activity that leads to things staying the same for long periods of time, because whatever goes on up here becomes totally real in the body. And if we don't change what we're thinking, nothing's going to change. So the emotions column is for the onsets and upticks in symptoms. It is to get emotional awareness, to take away the distraction function of the symptoms, which they're there initially to distract you from being aware of something that's pretty painful emotionally. If we become aware of that, we take away that symptom function. But usually what happens is we don't discover that emotion, and then we start to have doubt, and we get worried, and then the symptom has entered the doubt column. And the doubt column is for seemingly chronic symptoms. They seem like they're always there, or they're incredibly recurrent symptoms, and we just don't feel a lot of hope that we can get better from them. So we have to change the thinking there. That's what we do in the doubt column. And the symptom function there is not distraction. The symptom function there is protection. The symptoms are there because we, our central nervous system and our bodies, are worried that we're not going to be okay. And so doubt comes in to say, don't go there. Don't go there. It's like a helicopter parent gone rogue. You can't control it. It worries about everything. And we've got to calm it down so it knows we don't need protection to get those seemingly chronic symptoms to break up. Now, that's two of the columns. The power column, you don't really discover much until you get the other two columns more under control. But when you do, what people often find, and I did myself, is that you can get better to a certain point, but then sometimes symptoms hit a plateau. And that's when power column symptoms need to be dealt with. Power column symptoms are there not for distraction, not for protection, but for communication. There's a part of us that wants us to know something deep about our traumatic experience and fix that in our relationship with ourselves. And so that's what we do in the power column. Okay, we got three columns that deal with three symptom presentations, three symptom functions, and every time I answer a question, it's going to be in relation to these columns. Let me say hi to a couple other people, then we'll dive in. Darlene, I see you're here on Instagram and YouTube. But on YouTube, she said, love the book, which I'm very excited to hear. Darlene, I can't wait to hear your thoughts. Kath Barger, thank you for joining us here. And Shelby Geyer says, sounds like you have a cold. You are entirely correct. And listen, this is another sign of mind-body symptoms. What are the chances that somebody would have a book launch and have a cold the next week? They're high. Now, the book launch was very fun, but it also had its stresses. I was like, whoa, this is a big event. We had over 100 people on at one time on both platforms. So it was a huge event and very exciting. But, your body gets all revved up. There were also some stresses around the publishing and Amazon. And this is what happens with mind-body symptoms in relation to the immune system is your immune system is going to get lower when you are stressed. And so, yes, I do have a cold. And yes, the germs were there all the time. But it came in 100% because of the book launch, even though it was a great event. Thank you for asking that, though. And Shelby says, hope you feel better, and thanks for showing up for us. It is my pleasure. Did not want to miss the first Q&A after the book was out, and I feel well enough to be here, so thank you. Okay. Andy says, hi, Dan, enjoying Kindle version. I know that's the thing that people had direct access to right away. How is hope and power related? And for power, we repeatedly do it and make it habitual. Okay, two great questions built into one. So let me see if I can answer that best. Hope and power, I would say they have a strong relationship in that if you have a lot of hope, you're going to have more power. And if you're feeling in more power, you're going to have a lot more hope. So they feed each other. But here's one of the differences between the two. We can have hope, but secretly underneath, we don't actually fully believe it's going to happen. That's like a cognitive hope. We're thinking we have hope, but really we don't. And so power, I think, gives us real hope. It makes us feel like, I believe this can actually happen. So there's belief built into that. That's how I'd say hope and power are related, Andy. Let me know if that makes sense to you. Then he says, and for power, we repeatedly do it and make it habitual. Yes, we do. But again, that happens because of self-belief. And it happens because of the process in the power column. I call the power column high-speed therapy. It's like high-speed therapy. Because what ends up happening is we really do make adjustments in how we're interacting with ourselves that are radically different, very, very different than we've ever done before. So not only do we do it until it's habitual, but it's not just practice, it's also a way that we start to think differently with ourselves. It really changes things. I say this to people all the time. I had over 20 years of therapy experience, and it was useful in certain ways. It built certain skills, it got me certain insights, but it didn't really change my relationship with me. Maybe to some degree, but not as much as power column work did, or the work that came from my power column experiences. So, yes, we repeatedly do it and make it habitual, but it's also can be a really big change that happens early in the experience that makes that habitual experience natural, not even something we have to practice. Andy, I hope that makes sense, but let me know. Okay, Lynn Slavensky, good to see you here. Hi, Dan. Ordered book, but won't be here until March 5th. Looking forward to reading it. I can almost guarantee you it's going to be here way before March 5th. I don't know what's going on with Amazon that they're estimating these things. Lots of people have had the same thing saying, oh, it's February 19th to March 5th. And they have the book now. So if you ordered the book, it should be here any day now. Okay? Don't doubt. All right? Amazon's causing doubt. I'll clean that up. Let me say hi to a couple more people. Felipe Cabrera, good to see you here. Mind Body Integrated, thank you for joining us here. Lori Friedman, good to see you. Mind Body Integrated said, my book arrived today way sooner than the March 5th date Amazon's stated. And they're driving me crazy with this. This is one reason I have a cold. Kari Renee Stubblefield, thank you for being here as well. Lori Friedman says, hi, Dan. Looking forward to reading it. Waiting. I can't wait for you to have it. Lori, you should have it soon. Everybody I know who's ordered it has gotten it within a week. And we're going to speed up that process. All right. A couple other highs. Susan Sereno says, hi, Kasim. I'm going to talk about my groups for a bit here because Susan and Kasim are in the group together. So this is why they're saying hi to each other. The groups are a really special thing where there's a lot of support for each other, but I also want to point out why they're different than this Q&A, even though this Q&A is really great. On my website, www.crushingdoubt.com, you can find resources to get you help, and that includes my book now, which is great. But the main resources are the seminars, which teach you all about mind-body experience. They teach you why different people in the field say different things and how to make sense of that as a whole, so that all that information you're getting can make sense together, and you can also know what information you're not getting from anywhere. And usually that relates to doubt and power. Then I teach my system there. So the seminars are available on the website, but so are the groups. And the reason the groups are significantly better than the Q&A, as good as this is because we get so much further in one sitting. We can talk live. There are Zoom calls. They're private. They're not recorded. And you ask a question, and I'll ask you a question that gets you that will allow me to answer in a much more specific way. So we just get further every single time. Meanwhile, you're learning the whole time. It's not just when you're talking to me. It's when each person is talking. You should be learning something every time. And I'm always relating it back to the system, which I do here. But we just get deeper and further in addition to the emotional support and the wonderful people that are in this group. So something to think about. If you ever want to talk to me about it, it's dan@crushingdoubt.org. And happy to talk with you about how the groups work. Okay. SW, whoa, we got a name that's hard for me to, okay. SW Wapnile Neha Panchal. Okay, sorry, I think I got it. Welcome. I'm glad you are here with us. Felipe Carrera says, great to see everyone. Enjoying the first couple chapters. That's great, Felipe. Can't wait to hear all about it. Okay, Laura Brown says, thanks for this, Dan. Can any symptom be MBS? Now, MBS is mind-body syndrome. You're going to hear lots of different terms that all mean the same thing. MBS, TMS, tension myositis syndrome, neuroplastic symptoms, mind-body symptoms. It's all the same thing. It's all how the mind relates to the body. And so can any symptom be MBS? I have postnasal drip after a chest infection, but no, I was very anxious about it all, so have a feeling it is. It is always there, but up and down. All right. So I'm going to answer this question in a particular way, but this is something I say every time I answer any question. This is just my first answer. So ask the follow-up question because it doesn't matter what I think. It matters what you think. So if I answer a question and you're still left with doubt or you're still left with a question or wondering, then you got to keep going. All right. But here's my first answer. My rule of thumb is if the body can do it, the mind can use it. So that means any function that the body has can be co-opted by a mind-body process. So can any symptom be MBS? Yes, any symptom. Now, does that mean every symptom is a mind-body symptom? No. We know there are medical problems. They're very, very rare, though. They don't happen that often. And there tends to be a lot of overlap. So postnasal drip when you are anxious, that is likely to be a mind-body symptom. However, there is the reality of germs. So this cold, I didn't just get it out of nowhere. There have to be germs in the air. But guess what? There are always germs in the air. They're always around. But if you're not stressed, somebody could sneeze right into your eyeballs or your mouth and you still wouldn't get sick. But if you're stressed, you're more likely to have that happen. So the way I would look at this is you getting the postnasal drip probably came from some germs, but you can get better faster if you treat it as a mind-body process, which it is. So think about what you're stressed about. Focus on that. You can get better from that. This is one of those cases, postnasal drip, that's an interaction between mind, body, and I'll put in quotes medical because it's not medical in any dangerous way. But I have a real cold. I can't just instantly make it go away yet. I can make it go away faster, though. I also can prevent colds from happening a lot of the time. I couldn't do it this time. I was a little too stressed to be able to handle it. So most symptoms don't have that overlap. Most symptoms are just purely mind-body, like a muscle ache or a sharp pain. That's the kind of mind-body symptom that you don't just speed up the recovery. You can just get rid of it right away. Postnasal drip, you're probably not going to get rid of it right away, but you could get rid of it within a day. And so speed up the process. Laura, let me know if that answers your question to your satisfaction. It's always got to be to your satisfaction, okay? All right. And by the way, if I missed any question, let me know. I never want to miss a question. All right. Let's see. Greg Romano, my producer and business partner, says, hello, Dr. Dan. Good to see you, Greg. All right. Shelby Geyer says, you probably can't answer on here because it's a lot, but you know my situation. How do I rid this doubt? Fight or flight and symptoms constant. So, Shelby, I am going to say what your situation is because you're referring to it. I hope that's okay. But the reason is I want to answer your question to your satisfaction. And here's what you want to know. You're always asking the same question. Do I have MS or not? You don't. But your next question is the more important one. How do I rid this doubt? Because it does not matter that I'm telling you don't if you don't fully believe it. And even though you do basically believe me, you don't believe it at such with such a level of conviction that you yourself can dismiss it. So we need to look for what that is. We need to find what the doubt is. So you said fight or flight and symptoms constant. So first of all, fight or flight, it means that she's in a panic experience. Her central nervous system's all revved up. And that's because you're not getting the doubt down. So how do I rid this doubt? You're pointing us in the right direction of the right column to be working in. We're going to work in the doubt column. And in the doubt column, there's 3 steps. Observe, articulate, and counter. To observe a doubt is to call it into question. Now, Shelby, I'm going to ask you some questions, and you do some follow-up in the chat. This is where in group the questions would be going back and forth. But here I got to ask them and hear back from you. What is the nature of this doubt? Do you actually still believe that this could be MS? And if so, why? We need to get that articulated. The other thing, though, is are you calling it into question? Or do you actually think secretly in your heart of hearts that, yes, this is MS? Because if you secretly believe that, you're not observing the doubt. Observing the doubt is to call it into question. I want you to enter into your thinking that at least maybe this isn't MS and never was and never will be. I want you to enter that into your thinking of the realm of possibility. I don't think you've really done that. And I don't mean that critically, Shelby. I mean that encouragingly. Because if you haven't done it before and now we start doing it, then the chances get higher that we can start to tackle this and get rid of it. So I don't think you've really entertained the fact that it really might be true that this is not MS and never was and never will be. You got to entertain the possibility first. I know I'm right about it. I have no doubt at all. But it doesn't matter what I think. It matters what you think. So observe. Let's see. Are you actually calling this into question? Once you do call it into question, we can articulate it. What's the specific doubt? Well, the symptoms look exactly like MS. All right, well, I can answer that question if that is the doubt. MS is a collection of symptoms. Diagnoses are a collection of symptoms. They're not indicative of what's going to happen. They are a collection of symptoms. So, all right, you have a symptoms that fit with that collection of symptoms. But what you need to know is that doctors have been misdiagnosing MS for years because they don't understand mind-body issues. So they get somebody with these mind-body issues, which are all very common and tend to cluster together, and they label it MS. And then, so many people think they have it when almost nobody has it. It's very, very rare, and you do not have it, and you've been cleared by doctors. So how do you get rid of this doubt? We got to access what you're thinking. I want to say one other thing about this, and this is for Shelby, but it's for everybody. You can have doubts that you have a mind-body experience. You can have doubts that your symptoms are harder to tackle than others, and you can have doubts that you can get rid of this yourself. And to me, Shelby, I've talked with you long enough to know your main reason that you have this doubt is that you don't believe you can trust your own mind. You would rather, and I don't mean this critically, I mean it supportively, you would rather there be some expert who can tell you, but then you know that doesn't work because you know it needs to come from you. But how can it come from you if you don't trust you? So power column work is where we could help you learn to trust you. So, when you get the book, that's going to be a resource that can help you with that. For those of you who want to interact with me directly, though, those groups, they're Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. So you can access me up to 3 times a week, over and over and over, and I'll keep answering questions. And that's the goal. Okay, so fight or flight and symptoms concepts minus your book that's coming. So good. I'm glad you feel that there's help on the way. I hope that answer was helpful to you. Okay, Laura Brown says, thanks, Dan. I'm so grateful for your answer. It is my pleasure, but follow up as needed, okay? Maria Llewellyn, thanks for joining us here. And Jojo Relaxing, thanks for joining us here as well on Instagram. Okay, Teresa says, yeah, the cold thing happened to my daughter. New job and balancing her other activities. It's very, very common. And this is one of the many ways I'd like for people to start thinking about mind-body symptoms to understand just how common they are. If you think about it, try to think about all the times you've had a cold and think about how many of those times involved a time where you were feeling great, totally stress-free. I think you're going to find it was 0%. And that's extremely telling. But what we need to do is, as a community, we need to start looking at these things over and over again because this is a scientific study. If we keep asking these questions and we notice, all of us notice that we only get colds when we're stressed or when, responsibilities are up, which would cause stress, or various things, then that's data. And we've got to keep at it. Okay, thanks for sharing that, Teresa. Okay, Karen Isaacs, good to see you here. Hi, all. Got the book. I had Nicole's 92nd Street Y event last night. In the middle of the night, I woke up with a headache. In a nanosecond, I said, no way. It wasn't going to get in the way, and it vanished. Awesome. So, Karen, that's great. In my language, what you did is you crushed doubt right away. You were like, nope, 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 nope. But you also used the emotions column. You were like, there's a reason for this. And you may not have even had to think about it that much. But if you did, you would have thought about it. Maybe seeing Nicole brings back all the memories of when you were struggling with these headaches all the time. Maybe it's a headache that society hasn't accepted this sooner. But by all indication, Nicole's book is going swimmingly as well. And Dan Buglio's book is out as well. So we got 3 books in the mind-body community coming out all at once. And our hope is, and Nicole often says this, and I totally agree with it. A win for one of us is a win for all of us. For all of us. And I don't mean just the authors. I mean the whole community. We need people to know about this. So I hope that was a wonderful event, Karen. I'm sure it was. And it's wonderful that you are gaining more and more confidence that you can use this. And look what happened. That's great. Patty Martin says, hi, Dan and everybody. Good to see you, Patty. All right. Russell Crane's music. Good to see you, Russell. All right. Russell says, hi, Dan. How do you view dealing with difficult emotions? I've had emotional onsets and upticks of late and know that fear is the cause, but struggle to connect with actually feeling fear. All right. Um, there's actually a lot of questions embedded in here, as is often the case. Again, one of the reasons in group that we can get further because I can ask those questions and pinpoint what I'm going to answer. But I'm going to give you my best answer now, Russell, and we'll go from there. So, the first question is how do you view dealing with difficult emotions? Um, well, let me say this first. You say, fear is the cause. Fear is the emotional form of doubt. So there's doubt and emotion when there's fear. And you'd have to bring down that doubt enough to work in the emotions column, but you're already doing that. You've done this so many times that your doubt is low enough. What you're actually asking, I think, is how do I access the fear? You're saying I'm not actually feeling the fear. You know there's fear, but you're not feeling it. Well, that's what happens in an emotions column symptom. It's that you're having a feeling that you're truly not aware of. And I've been astounded by this over and over. I am a very, very emotionally aware person, and yet I can have symptoms when I'm like, I, I swear nothing's bothering me. This happened to me a bunch towards the end of writing and editing the book. My foot was bothering me, and I was like, I feel great about this. I'm having a symptom? So you make sense and your symptoms make sense. That's one thing I say. Take your body at its word is another. So here's the thing, Russell. You don't have to connect with the feeling of fear because guess what? Your body's already doing it for you. What I want you to do, though, is take your body at its word and think about the fact that what you're feeling is fear right there. So you don't need to do anything else about it except that no, this is fear and I must be really afraid. Now, you do need to connect to the intellectual idea. You don't necessarily need to connect with that feeling of fear because the body's doing it for you already. But to disarm an emotions column symptom, you've got to have knowledge, awareness. So the question is to pinpoint specifically what is the emotional experience that's leading to the fear. Now, there's many times also, Russell, where this will translate into you actually feeling the fear once you hit on the right idea. So that's another way to go about it that ultimately will solve the problem best. What I want to do is pinpoint that. So ask yourself the question, what is this fear actually about? Look at your emotions column themes and see where does this line up? Where is there a problem here? There's something that you're not connecting. Here's another tip for everybody. If you're working in the emotions column, look for the timing of the symptoms. The timing is exact. When do they go up? When do they start? It's never an accident. If you're like, it happened when I was talking to this particular person, then what was going on during that interaction? It happened when I woke up. Then what were you dreaming about? Or what happened the day before? Or what are you about to face today? Ask the questions about the specific timing. We need information when it comes to emotions column stuff, Russell. So that's what I'd say about that. Let's see what you think. All right. Ian Despain, good to see you here. Hi, Dan. Thank you for your channel and all your content. It is my pleasure. Has helped me a lot. That's fantastic. I just ordered the book too. Fantastic, Ian. I'm just so excited. There's so many people getting the book, and it's really a dream come true for me in multiple ways because when I was suffering, I wanted somebody to be able to have given me this information, and now I'm a person handing out this information actively. And the book is a way that I can do it in such a way that is really exactly how I would have wanted it presented to me. I anticipated virtually every question I could possibly be asked. And listen, you guys trained me. The Q&As, the groups, you asked all these questions. I also trained myself with all of my questions. And I'm a very thorough question asker. But all of us together, those questions, they help me know how to answer these questions. And I'm so excited to get that information in all of your hands. Okay, Greg, you got your book yesterday. That's good to hear. Thanks, Greg. All right. Maria Llewellyn says, what to do with symptom imperative? One symptom is replaced with the other. Sometimes they overlap. So the symptom imperative is something that Dr. Sarno coined that phrase. What he means by that is you get rid of one mind-body symptom and another one just pops up. And what that means to me is that there's something else going on in the system that's keeping it going, and it's the thinking. It is a doubt column experience. So the symptom imperative really only happens when you've got the doubt column active. Because if it wasn't active, let's think about it from a columns perspective, what would happen? If doubt wasn't active and you identified what a symptom was and you understood what the emotion was, then what would happen would be exactly what happened to Karen, where she got rid of her headaches, vanished. She brought the doubt down. She understood what was happening, gone. If another symptom comes in to replace another, it means that there's doubt still there. There's doubt about, well, can I ever just stop having symptoms? Or there's doubt about why was the symptom there in the first place? Finally, I got rid of it just by knowing that it wasn't a big deal. But basically, Maria, a way of saying it is you may just not have enough of a full understanding of why that symptom was there. And as a result, you were able to get rid of the symptom itself because you know it's mind body, but you weren't able to get rid of symptoms being active then because you don't know why it's there. So my system is designed to get you an answer. Why is it there? So what to do with the symptom imperative? Let's get you a more full understanding of why symptoms are there, and you won't have that endless cycle. Symptom imperative can be taken away with clarity about why symptoms are there and why they behave the way they do. Okay, as always, that's my first answer. Let's hear if you need more. All right? All right, Kasim. Good to see you here, my friend. Started seeing a somatic therapist about calming down my central nervous system. This therapist is mind-body informed, but I find I am not doing the homework like I have been doing with your system. Is this doubt keeping me from doing the work? Or is this on a subconscious level I gravitate to the work that works best for me? I have had this before with therapists. Feel good in session, but I have no interest in doing the work. Of course, somatic experiencing is more feeling your feelings, unsure of why this is the case. Really interesting. Okay, so as always, I'll give my first answer and then let's do follow-up. I think this is my guess, Kasim, but you're going to need to tell me if this makes sense to you. I've known you for a while now, and I know that the thing that seems to help you the most, there's a couple things. One, the relationship with the person you're working with really, really matters. You and I have a relationship that I feel like is a really golden relationship. It's really good for you. It's really good for me. We have this great feeling with each other. And we've even ironed out some things that were worries of yours. And so I think what's going on here is there's some worry in this new relationship. There's some feeling of like, I don't know who you are or how far I can trust you or if it's going to mess up my work that I'm doing in the columns, which you've been feeling really good about. So I'm not saying it's bad that you're going. Great that you're adding something in and looking for something that can help more. Fantastic. And let's give it a chance and see, but let's also cut you some slack that it makes sense that you would be slow to dive into this work. Now, there's another piece I want to mention. You also do better when things make sense. And I think you've really appreciated that our work together makes sense of things. And a lot of therapists might make a lot of sense, but not full sense. And if she's not making full sense, or he or she, I don't know if you said he or she, sorry about the assumption. It could be that you're not making full sense yet. And maybe you're not feeling comfortable saying to this person, hey, here's what I need. So that could be a step forward in the work that you do with this person is to say, okay, listen, I had these moments with Dan. He helped me work through them. We got to a new level of trust. I think I need to do that here. I'm worried that, and then fill in the blank. So there's just a lot going on here when you first come to see a new therapist. And especially when you're potentially worried about how it fits with the work you're doing that's going so well. What I can guarantee you, though, is you're not in any danger because either you're going to work something out with this therapist where they're going to be a good part of the solution, or you're going to decide not to see them. And you're worth that to sort it out. So I think you do the homework when you feel encouraged that it's going to work. And it's understandable that you'd have your doubts at first. So I say, give yourself space to not only have those doubts, but I think even voice those doubts with that person if you feel comfortable enough to do it. If not, we can talk more about it in group, Kasim. But tell me if that answered your question, okay? Nox Flamma, thanks for joining us here. and for the encouraging hand gestures. I appreciate it. Maria Llewellyn says, I wonder if you are familiar with German New Medicine. So, Maria, I'm not familiar with that particular term, but I will say this. Oh, sorry, let me just hide that. I will say this. Even though I'm not familiar with the concept itself, one of the reasons I'm not so familiar with terms is I don't really think in terms of terms. Sometimes people will say, what do you think about this diagnosis? And I'm like, I don't really think about diagnosis much. I think about how the mind-body process works, what's what, how to sort that out. So tell me more what German New Medicine is, and then I'll weigh in with my thoughts about it, okay? But thank you for that question. I want to hear more. A lot of times, by the way, I'm totally familiar with it, just not by that term. So tell me what German New Medicine is. I can't wait to talk about it. Fearless Tony, thanks for joining us here. Let me know if you have any questions. Okay, Beatrice Kahn says, hi, Dan and all. Beatrice, great to see you here. All right. Darlene says, I get it mentally 100%. I get it in my core knowing more often. My doubt is frustration with more exposure. My doubt is I'm reading that sentence to make sure I know where you're at with that. Having trouble moving past this. It's of random symptoms keep popping up, fading away. Okay, so I'm going to read this again, Darlene, because I got to make sure I got your question. I get it mentally 100%. I get it in my core knowing more often. My doubt is frustration with more exposure. Okay, so Darlene, first question I have for you. And again, if we were in group, I'd ask these questions. We'd be flowing. Here, I want you to follow up. More exposure to what? My doubt is frustration with more exposure. So I could already have it, but I might not. So I'm gonna tell you what I'm understanding so far. We'll see if I have it right. I think what you're saying is that when you're dealing with exposure, the symptoms can go up. And if that is the case, then what you're dealing with is what I call a doubt trigger. A doubt trigger is a time where symptoms go up, not because of emotional onsets or upticks, which is normally the case, but because of a stimulus in the environment that makes you worried. I did this activity. I'm worried this is going to happen. I pushed through. I'm worried it's going to exacerbate the symptoms. I think that's what you're saying, is that doubt comes in right there. It gets you frustrated because when you're exposing yourself more to these things, the symptoms are going up. So you're also saying you're having trouble moving past random symptoms that keep popping up. Okay, random. This is a word I want to harp on that should be helpful to you all. Symptoms are never random. I don't mean this critically, Darlene. I mean it encouragingly. When we use the word random, I know doubt is operating because doubt wants us to think they're random. It wants us to think you can't really figure this out. It's just random. And it throws us off the scent. Take your body at its word. Take the timing at its word. Look in the emotions column. The onset and uptick of a symptom, it happens when something's going on. They're not random. So don't get frustrated with that. Instead, let's do the emotions column work. I mean, it's understandable to be frustrated. I'm not saying that's a problem, but you'll be less frustrated if there's somewhere for you to go with it. And the place for you to go with it is the emotions column. Don't think of it as random. Let's figure out why. Why then? Something's going on, and I can help you figure that out. Okay? LJP Wright, thanks for joining us here. Chris Weir, thank you for joining us here as well. Please do let me know if you have any questions. We're talking about mind-body symptoms and my system for how to recognize each moment so that you can get rid of them. That's a good thing I want to put in a plug for, is that these symptoms, they're all moment to moment. I have people say to me, I can never get better because look at how I am today. And I think, why is how you are today why would that have any indication about whether you can get better? If you know it's moment to moment, you'll know this is just a bad moment. And the columns can help you know, why is this a bad moment? How is this a bad moment? What am I supposed to do about this moment? And once we get all that together, the moments become less scary. Okay? Susan Sereno has a question. Sorry, my voice is not ideal, but some of it may be mind-body, of course, because I'm tired, but I am still enjoying being here. When I have stiffness and less range of motion in my shoulder, that I had replacement shoulder surgery, I have doubt, did I cause a structural problem now? Okay, again, this is another case where in the group, we could get further because I'd ask questions. And here's what those questions would be. Susan, are you saying that you have stiffness and less range of motion in that shoulder all the time? Or are you saying that comes and goes? And when you have it in that shoulder, you get worried you cause a structural problem. That's an important question, because if it comes and goes, the stiffness and less range of motion, that's a surefire sign that you did not cause any damage. Now, good news is this: you didn't cause any damage either. Because if it doesn't come and go, it just means it's doubt. If you think about it, this shoulder surgery was to address a structural issue. So, if anything, you should be structurally more sound. But on top of it, these structural issues don't correlate with pain and symptoms. They don't even correlate with stiffness and range of motion, generally speaking. So, what we need to do, and this reminds me of the question with Shelby. There's a question that you keep asking. And I don't mean this as bad news or to say, oh, I'm getting sick of the question. None of that is true. But I'm just noting you're asking the same question again and again. What does that mean? It means your doubt is still not down enough. Now, Susan and I have made great progress with this. Her doubt is actually very far down from where it was. But there's this nagging thing going on, right? Where you can't just say to yourself, I've already been over this like hundreds of times. And the reason I'm bringing this up is this is the same problem Shelby's having. We are working on you trusting you knowing that you can know something with certainty. Sometimes people ask me, Dan, how can you be so sure of yourself? Well, there's a couple of reasons. One, I've asked a lot of questions. I've studied this a lot. So I can feel very confident in the ideas that I've found out. But in addition, the columns give me a huge amount of confidence that I can understand things. So it's not just me, it's that I have this understanding that really works. And then thirdly, I've done power column work. In fact, I did it before I had named it the power column at all. And I knew what I was doing as it was happening. I was like, this is different. This is me gaining confidence that I can know something no matter what anyone else thinks. So this is power, guys. This is one example of power. Knowing that you're right, even if nobody else agrees. But you got to know it, really. It's not just thinking it. I'm not talking about delusional thinking. I'm talking about when you really know you're right. I really know that my system is going to help a lot of people, and it's going to help people in different ways than any other book. That's why I wrote it. I had that certainty. So, Susan, we've got to get you certainty that you can know something and not worry that maybe somebody else knows better. They don't. The only people who might know better are in your shrunken circle of trust. Me, Dr. Sarno, Howard Schubiner. That's pretty much it. So you did not cause a structural issue, but if I keep saying that to you, which I will do, but if I only do that, you're going to keep coming back to the same question until you can have confidence that you can know what's on your mind and what's clear. All right? So good segue right into Shelby, because she was talking about the same kind of thing. I think secretly, yes, it's MS. Do you see how important this is, guys? Shelby, think about this. This is for Shelby, but it's for everybody. Think how important it is. She's trying to fight the doubt. She wants to listen to me, but what does she actually believe? Secretly, yes, it's MS. That's what she thinks. We're going to change that, Shelby. Once we change that belief, truly, you won't be worried about this. But we've got to get you convinced. Now, you say it's because of the sensations. Too much research before knowing about mind-body syndrome. I don't call things syndrome or disorders because it's the human condition for me. I'm not saying Shelby, you shouldn't, or anybody shouldn't, but not questioning it because it's a limited belief. Question because old MRI, but won't get another. Okay, well, we've dealt with this before, but I haven't gotten this nailed for you yet. So I'm going to try again. You've had the same symptoms with the old MRI and now. And this is what doubt does. It argues ridiculous things. And I mean that as good news, Shelby. It is ridiculous. You have the exact same symptoms, and now doubt is arguing, I don't know, that was an old MRI. A new MRI might show that we do have MS. It's the same symptoms. If the same symptoms were there for the old MRI, and they somehow were different we have to think about what would you even be expecting there? Because first of all, what's going to happen is the old MRI is going to be the same as the new one. That's almost always the case. Secondly, even if it did change, your symptoms haven't changed. They're the same. So what would that really tell you? Now, here's the other thing. You did all this research before knowing about mind-body syndrome. That research is massively contaminated. It's a problem. Any research that doesn't have mind-body experience mixed into it is tainted research. It is. We do all these research studies and they have the placebo effect. And it's encompassed in the studies, but not enough. What they don't realize is if mind-body experience can warp things as much as we know it can alter results entirely. And so any studies that don't have the mind-body process really deeply entrenched as part of the understanding of the results, I'm not going to give you any information. So that's one start. But now we could get specific. Go ahead and bring some of that research to me. Tell me what it said. I'm going to love it. I'm going to tear it to shreds. And that's part of what I do, guys, is I crushed out. That's what we're here to do. Bring me the specifics. Sometimes you can't get answers because you're not settling the specifics enough. Sometimes people are like, just believe me. Well, you would if you could, but I can convince you. I will always be able to convince you if we just keep having this conversation, different parts of the conversation. Okay, Shelby, this is important though. We're recognizing you think secretly, yes, it's MS. You are dead wrong. I have no doubt about it at all. There's a 0% part of me that has doubt in this, but we've got to get you convinced, and we're going to do that in the specifics. We're also going to do it in getting you to actually call it into question. Can you entertain that even though you secretly think it's MS, that you might be completely wrong? Let's start calling that into question. Okay, Jew Dawn, thank you for joining us here. Please do let me know if you have any questions. As I've been mentioning on my website, there are different resources for dealing with mind-body experience. My website is www.crushingdoubt.com. The book is available on the website, but so are my teaching seminars that teach all about mind-body experience and the groups where you get to access me once, twice, or 3 times a week, as much as you want to get all of your questions answered. And of course, I'll also be here for the Q&As, but in those groups, we get a lot further, and not just with your questions, but everybody's questions. All right, basically, all the illnesses are related to emotion. So this is a German new medicine, I assume, because Maria's following up from that. So all the illnesses are related to emotions, but they connect specific body part to a certain emotion or a situation. Okay, that's an interesting question. Here's what I think about that, Maria. I do think that there are times where parts of the body tend to express certain emotions, but this is another example of why my columns are very useful. They do lots of things all at once. And one of the things that they do is they distinguish between types of mind-body symptoms. So what you're talking about, I would say fits very well with my emotions column. In the emotions column, symptoms do tend to come up in a very metaphorical sort of way. If you're shouldering too much burden, you could have a shoulder issue. If you are itching to get started, you could have itchiness. If you can't see your way through to the answer, you could have blurred vision. In the emotions column, those onsets and upticks, it can be very metaphorical. In the doubt column, it's not metaphorical. In fact, it usually relates to belief. So if you feel, Susan's example is a great one. If you feel you had shoulder surgery and you've got a symptom there, that's not metaphorical. That's not related to the emotions. It doesn't make any sense that it would be because your thought is already on that shoulder. And it didn't get there because of metaphor. It didn't get there because of emotion. So distinguishing between the type of symptoms is really important here. In the emotions column, German new medicine, totally on point, 100%. It can even be true in the power column because the power column is also an emotional column. So there can be emotional expression of symptoms, but not with doubt and not with symptoms that linger. Now, let's take my back pain as an example, Maria. You could say that did have metaphorical meaning because it did have an onset and it happened right there and it did not relate to any doubt. I didn't think I had injured my back. It just came up there. So there was an emotions column connection there. And then it became a doubt experience. That's different than a pure doubt experience that came from I just thought I had a problem there, or I thought I had a problem because I was lifting weights or because I had an injury. So it depends on if the emotions are involved or not. They're not always involved, but you need to know when. And my system can help teach that. Maria, let's follow up with that and see what you think. All right. All right. Beatrice says level 3 doubt continues high. Let's talk about these levels. Level 1 doubt, these are all terms that I kind of made up. But level 1 doubt is doubt that it's mind body or not. Once you move past that, you get to level 2 doubt. I know it's mind body, but maybe my symptom is harder to manage than others. If you move past that, there's level 3 doubt. I know it's mind body. I know my symptom can be managed just like any other mind body symptom. But what if I can't do it? Or what if there's something about me that's going to stand in the way? Or I don't know if I can do this. And Beatrice is saying that her belief in herself is low. She's having high level 3 doubt. Let me see if you have a follow-up with that, Beatrice. She says level 3 doubt about my alien foot. She put in quotes. So, a lot of times when we're having deep mind body symptoms, it can feel like a foreign part of our body. Like this is not us. So that's what she means about alien foot. What I want to do, Beatrice, is let's observe, articulate, and counter. That's what we do in the Dow column. I want you to start calling this into question. Is it possible that I actually can do this, but I'm just thinking I can't? Let's just call it into question, and then let's get it articulated, because you can't counter something that hasn't been articulated. Why do you doubt that you can do this? In specific. Get back to me on that, okay? All right. Karen Isaac says, loved the event. That's about Nicole. It seems like she met somebody, but oh boy, we have a lot of questions to catch up on. Way behind. Sorry. We're going to move into high gear. We're going to do a speed round soon. Maggie Sterling and Throttle Torque, thanks for joining us here. And Lori says, hi, Dan. Happy to be here. Good to have you here. Teresa says, yes, colds happen to me in college, especially around finals. Very, very typical. We see this all the time. Okay, Darlene has a follow-up. The more exposure, the more stubborn the main symptoms. Okay, so Darlene, what that is that's telling you that you need to do a little more cognitive work against the doubt, because you're trying to expose yourself to these things, but it's making your doubt go up. So I have a rule, which is you need to do the thing that brings the doubt down. Sometimes that's exposure, but sometimes it's waiting. No, I'm not ready for exposure yet. I tell people, deal with triggers last. Work on the doubt. Get in a really strong place with it before you go ahead and do it. When I got back on the basketball court, it was 2 years after reading Sarno, because I had to get in a really, really good headspace to do it. Okay? So that's what's going on there. We just need to work on doubt a little bit more. Okay, Shelby's continuing the MS question. Mayo told me lesions can appear later on. It can be from anywhere from 5 to 10 years later. Oh, EBV. Had EBV 10 years ago. I don't know what EBV is. Flash in eye concerning me. I have nightmares about this about every night. Thanks, Dan. I know how scary this is, Shelby, and I really do feel for you about it. But the good news is it's completely wrong. And listen, I think diagnoses that are like, it can just happen 10 years, 5 to 10 years later. Usually that's a pretty suspect diagnosis, actually. That's not likely to be the case. I also know many people who actually got diagnosed with MS, then started doing mind body work and just got rid of the symptoms entirely. Didn't even have MS. And doctors were like, that's amazing. And I'm like, actually, no, it's not. You messed up, to the doctor. So we need to work on that. I understand this flash in the eye, though. It's an emotions column symptom. We kind of laughed together a little bit about the fact that I think I said you couldn't see your way out of this. So there was some emotions column metaphor there. I understand it's concerning to you, but you're not in any danger. We've got to get you convinced of that. Meanwhile, if it is this 5 to 10 years, and that was 10 years ago, then maybe lowering the doubt, it would lower the doubt to go get an MRI. Go get it. It's not going to show you anything different. It's not. I can promise you. Go do it. If it's going to help with the doubt. If it's not going to help with the doubt, don't do it. All right. Let's see. Speed round. Also, would you say it's normal to have some pain post-massage? I got one today and it was incredible, first time in 6 years, but I felt a twinge while being stretched and now I'm sore in the area. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's a physical body, you know? You press on something, it gets sore. Massages are going to leave little bruises and, you know, it's interesting because people talk about muscle tears. Muscle tears aren't what people think they are. They aren't these huge, horrible injuries. Whenever we exercise at all, we tear the muscle because the fibers kind of break up a little bit. That's how we become stronger. So, yes, this is totally normal, but follow up and let me know if you need more. Nox Flamma says, can ear issues, SCM region-esque, I need to know what that abbreviation is. I'm sorry, I don't know offhand. Pain sensations be mind body. So, yes, 100%. Again, my rule of thumb, if the body can do it, the mind can use it. I say that to yourself all the time. If the body can do it, the mind can use it. The function's already there. If the mind can control other functions, why can't it control this function? It can. So 100%. But let's do follow-up, Nox Flamma. Even though we're in speed round, so I'm going fast. But you can do follow-up in speed round. Shelby says, are the constant symptoms because of the doubt column? Yes. I'll say more about that. Should we push ourselves when we don't feel like we can do something? Example, driving kids to school, going on a walk. I recommend doing, this is what I was saying to Darlene, do the cognitive work first. Get yourself ready. You got to be in a better place of believing it. Otherwise, your symptoms will go up from fear, and that'll feel like confirmation, and the doubt will go up. So we don't want to do that. Prepare yourself for this. Get into a spot where you believe this more. We got to work on that, Shelby, okay? All right, SCM equals a sternocleidomastoid muscle along the front of the neck, possibly messed up the spelling, LOL. Fine for me. I couldn't tell the difference one way or another. If it's a muscle, then the mind-body process can use it. If it's anything in the body, the mind-body process can use it. If you think about it, it would be odd for the mind-body process to only be able to use certain muscles. Why does it discriminate? I mentioned this in my book. There's no reason it would. It uses everything it can. So it'll use every muscle and every nerve and every system as much as it wants to. She says, I've had MRIs. Actually, I don't know if it's she, but I think so. Sorry. I've had MRIs and other imaging done on my neck and back and no abnormalities. So that's even more of a sign of it. The funny thing is, if you had abnormalities, it probably wouldn't apply anyway. But with no abnormalities, it's even clearer. So this is mind body. 100%. I'll guarantee it. And let's work at it. I'm happy to talk with you about it anytime. It's dan@crushingdoubt.org if you want to email me, and we can talk about my seminars, my groups, the book, anything you want. But, I would encourage you, at the very least, buy the book, read it, see. You will see. I mention all of these things. I may not mention everything specifically by name because that would be a huge book, but I mention a lot of things, and I mention, if I don't mention it, don't freak out because look at the rules. Okay. He thanks you. Aha. Thank you. Sorry about that. I'm definitely grabbing the book. Thanks, Dan. My pleasure. And I'm glad I checked on the gender there. Sorry about that. I don't know why I assumed that. Who knows? But I'm glad I checked my assumptions. I don't make a lot of assumptions. That's part of how I got a good theory. Okay. Hillel says, hi, Dan and all. Hillel, good to see you. What I'm always looking for is whether there's a way to immediately eliminate or significantly reduce a physical or emotional symptom. When there's a way to progress in the moment, I feel good. When there isn't, it feels discouraging. Absolutely. So Hillel, and this is for everybody, this is one of the reasons that I find that the columns are so important. You need to know what to do in each moment. And these columns give you something to do in each moment. And you can get better fast if you understand them well. Hillel, you've come a long way. You know these columns much better than you used to. You've gotten good results at certain times. You're encouraged because you make sense and your symptoms make sense. But we got to work on it more because ultimately we've got to help you. We've got to help you get to a place where you know you're going to be able to do things in each moment. That's always the key. All right. Now, we got a long one. A mental symptom we've talked about before since my past relationship, the feeling of pressure when I feel I must be available for the other person, to be there for them. And when I'm sick and can't do that, I get overwhelmed with anxiety. I understand more now that it makes sense, even though I haven't fully resolved it. But how can I, in the moment, feel calm and not experience this feeling when it arises? Okay. So There's actually a doubt embedded in there, Hillel, which we often find is the case. Doubt is very tricky. And the doubt that is embedded in there, this is how doubt messes with you all the time these days, because we've nailed it so much in other areas. It's always saying to you, Hillel, if this is a power column issue, you're screwed. You can't solve power column issues fast. Wrong. First of all, you can. And secondly, this isn't the power column issue. Power column issues, the only thing that they lead to are low-level plateaus. They're not particularly horrible symptoms. So all of the horrible symptoms get resolved with the emotions and doubt column. The worst symptoms are in those columns. The power column, that really, it resolves psychological experience more than anything and gets you past these plateaus. The emotions and doubt columns by themselves, they can give you something to do in every single moment. But look what doubt is doing. It is using the power column to mess with you. It's saying, that one takes a long time, Hillel. You're never going to be able to do this. Screw you, doubt. Give me a break. No, we know how this system works. It's just trying to fool you. There are things you can do. You can get the emotional awareness you need to nail emotional symptoms and make them go away. And you can bring down doubt so significantly that it will go away. Now, you haven't had as much experience with doubt column symptoms really going away. I've brought down your doubt. That's the cognitive work that I was talking about with Darlene and Shelby. We've done a lot of that cognitive work. Next step is to, now you're ready for the exposure because we've done the cognitive work. When you do that, it'll really help. I was just talking to somebody who was saying that they had really bad tendonitis and they read Sarno and they finally were so sick of it. They just did the exercise and they were like, no, I'm not giving into this. I know it's not tendonitis. And they kept pumping iron and ignoring that. And then it just went away. There's always something you can do, Hillel. Doubt is the thing that's convincing you can't. Are thoughts, mindset, and beliefs super important to healing? Absolutely. And total belief and MBS equally important. So many mind-body people say they are. Yes, they are. But I think a lot of times then people feel that they're at a loss because they're like, but I can't fully believe it, or I don't know how to. Part of my job is to actually help you change the beliefs. You would if you could. They are that important. Yes, they dominate everything. Your mindset, your thoughts, your beliefs, they're the dominant factor in what happens. And total belief is the key, but total belief shouldn't have to come with blind faith. It comes with certainty from science and logic. All right. Nox Flamma says, all is well, long hair has its associations. You got me. That's why. And the icon is actually small, so it just looked like a small icon with long hair. But thank you for your understanding. When will the audiobook be available? Well, unfortunately, with my cold, we're set back a week or so because I can't record it with this voice. But I'm hoping it'll be available in about 6 to 8 weeks, and I'm going to see if I can get it done faster. And then we'll have a separate audiobook launch, which I'll be excited about as well. Okay, Maria Llewellyn says, thank you. You are welcome. I hope that did answer your question. It was a very helpful question. Nox Flama says, mind-body work has been some of the most beautiful work I've done. It leads to self-knowledge. You're much of an alchemist, Dan. That is a deep compliment. I really appreciate that. And it is the deepest work I've ever done, even including on myself. It's mind-blowing how much I got better. I got significantly better in 3 months from mind-body work than I did in 20 years of therapy. And I say it all the time to group members. They come to the group and I say, I don't know if you know how far we've gotten, but in a couple of months, we've done about 8 years of therapy. And I know because I've been through it. I've been through it as a patient and as a therapist. And all of my patients move much faster with the columns. All right. Darlene says exposure is I'm getting out more, talking to people more. Okay, but if you haven't done the cognitive work of doubt quite enough, it could be scary. And you know what? Let yourself not do it for now. That's fine. But let's do that work. Okay? She says, thanks, Dan. Very helpful. My pleasure. Okay. Teresa says, doubt trigger. That is exactly what I get, plus being stiff in the morning. Okay, so being stiff in the morning even is a doubt trigger. Because actually, if you think about it, stiffness in the morning is not inherent. In a lot of ways, if we slept well, we should be really relaxed. We were just lying there. A lot of people do have stiffness in the morning, but it's because we don't sleep in a relaxed way. So our belief systems determine a lot of what happens. I often say your mindset determines your physiology. All right, Beatrice says, I wonder about the function of neuroplastic symptoms. Why does my mind body require the intensity of a CRPS type pain or hyperalgesia or versus just the regular chronic or acute pain? It is because the emotional danger on top of the mind body sense of danger was so big that you went into a central nervous system trauma response. It's like if a soldier, this is a good example, if a soldier comes off the field of battle and they are so wrecked that it can convince people not to send them back, that's what it's there for. In a way, you've just been through a war and your mind is trying to show everybody, I cannot take more. I cannot. It's showing where the limits are. And when a CRPS is complex regional pain syndrome, which is another bullshit diagnosis, it just describes a set of circumstances and symptoms. And it does so accurately, but it's just describing something we know. And I can describe it with neuroplastic symptoms, which is another word for mind-body symptoms. The reason it was not the regular chronic or acute pain is because it was extremely scary, raising doubt super high, and it was very scary emotionally, very upsetting emotionally. You're like a soldier coming off the field of battle, and that takes time to recover. We need time to recover from mind-body symptoms. It doesn't mean mind-body symptoms doesn't mean, great, I can make it go away right away and no recovery time is needed. What I said to Hillel is true. You can make symptoms go away very quickly much of the time. Sometimes it takes longer because doubt is higher or the emotional disturbance was greater. That's not true for you, Hillel. We need to iron that out. Yours is a doubt column symptom all the way. Beatrice has what I call a neuroplastic feedback loop, which comes not just from doubt, but from a very powerful emotional experience. And that's why the function is telling yourself, be more protective of yourself. Now we got to convince it that you'll protect yourself just fine without that. Okay? Couple more questions. Super speed round. Kasim, one of my concerns is that he has filled me with doubt, especially at the start, with his language and ways to describe symptoms. Somatic experiences being with sensations, but if I do this, I worry I'm avoiding an emotion column uptick. Can being with your sensations, trying to change them and lower CNS and connecting the uptick with a column symptom work at the same time? That's interesting. So, Kasim, I'd say this. I do think this is leading to some confusion for you. I'm not saying that's a bad thing. It either needs to be ironed out with him, or we need to get to a point where you might say, okay, wait, this isn't working for me. Now, the columns can work alongside with most professionals as long as those professionals don't raise doubt. But when doubt gets raised, it does become a problem. And I would encourage you get that question answered, not just with me, but with him. And so I think what you want to say is, I'm wanting to do this, but in my way of understanding, this is actually raising my doubt. Remember the flow of the columns, Kasim. Bring doubt down, then you can deal with emotions. Then it goes to power. So we've got to get this clinician on board with that. Bring down doubt first. If that's not happening, then you can't do them both at once because this is going to raise doubt and interfere. If doubt's low enough, you can do both. You can connect with things and still lower your central nervous system flare-ups, but only if doubt is down. All right? I hope that makes sense. Beatrice says, since the symptoms, the takeover, and for me, seem to suck up a lot more air. And contorting the body to tolerate causes even more pain, doubt, and rage. Yeah. Since the symptoms, I may be misreading something. Since the symptoms, the takeover, since the symptoms take over, maybe, and for me, seem to suck up a lot more air. Yeah. Let's see. You're saying some other things. Symptoms screaming for attention. It's just astounding. That's what happens with neuroplastic feedback loops. By the way, what do you know or think about low dose naltrexone? I know we don't talk much about meds. I don't know a ton about meds, but I know that meds, they work on the body. So if there's mind-body experience and it's something happening in the body, meds can help with certain things. But my question is, does it raise doubt or not? So if it can help some, okay, that's fine. But I want to encourage you, you're not going to need it. You really aren't, not in the long run. So the way I think about meds is if it's a short-term help that doesn't raise doubt, fine. Great. Keep working against the doubt. Symptoms screaming for attention, that's just right. That is what happens in these neuroplastic feedback loops, which again, most mind-body symptoms aren't that, but some are, and they come with a major emotional upheaval, a huge amount of doubt, followed by obsessional thinking. Those three things cause that. Most symptoms are not that. And Beatrice, it is extra hard, but I know my way out of that too, because I didn't just have 8 years of back pain. I also had 2 years of foot pain that was neuroplastic feedback loop, foot pain and sensations. And I did work my way out of it. It took longer, and I figured out how to do it. That's in the book too. All right. Susan says, "You're so right, Dan. You really know me." I definitely do. And I'm glad I know you, and I'm glad we're working on the right things for you. All right. Again, I hope I didn't miss any questions, but please do let me know if I did. Follow up. The flash is a new symptom. New symptoms happen all the time. Emotions column symptom, onset or uptick. Think about the timing, Shelby. If you didn't have doubt, if you didn't have so much doubt, you'd be able to explore this from an emotions column standpoint. You could say, now, wait a minute. What was going on then? Something went on then. It's not because of MS. It's because symptoms aren't random. It's not just like, oh, yeah, you have MS, and 10 years in, you get a flash in the eye. That's garbage. That's not a very good hypothesis at all. And I mean that supportively. So keep thinking about that. Okay. Could I quickly expand on what I mean by neuroplastic feedback loop? So what that means is the central nervous system gets so revved up by the onset that it's harder to calm down. It's like the trauma response is just massive. And so that's not true for most mind-body symptoms. I know how to identify those. So if you wonder, you certainly ask me, but I would assume it's not that, especially if it's not a very high-level symptom that is always there and causing major obsession and did directly relate to an emotional experience. My back pain had the obsessions, and it had the constantly there and high levels of fear. It had it both, but it did not have the emotional side. There was no reason for it then that was glaring and big. With my foot, I had an issue that happened on my birthday that was incredibly upsetting, paired with a doubt experience that actually related to a seeming physical injury that made it feel much more likely that there was something real physical. So the doubt was just much higher doubt, huge emotional upheaval, and obsessional thinking. So I hope that helps. Next time, but let's talk more about it. Theron Littleton, thank you for joining us here. We still have a bunch of questions. Oh my God, this is the first time I think I'm not going to get to all the questions, and I'm sorry about that. If I don't get to your questions, what you can do is bring them back for next time. Or if you're in my group, pop them on the community site. Okay, let me see if I can get through these. Danger in relationships is an emotional theme of mine, manifesting as a heavy sense of responsibility. Since my past bad relationship, I felt pressure to always be available and present. Prevent distance. Yep. I believe it makes sense, even though I haven't fully understood it yet. That's good. You're on your way. How can I, when I feel the pressure and tension, make an internal change in real time to feel calm and at peace? Again, you are thinking this is power column, and doubt is screwing you with it. You don't need to get to full peace about this. Focus on the emotions column. Why is it happening then? Or if it's a doubt column symptom, focus on the doubt. Stop focusing on power. Doubt is messing with you about that. You don't need to do power until later. Let's master emotions and doubt, especially doubt, and you'll get rid of these symptoms, or you'll get them so low that you can then do this work. Stop worrying about the power column. Hope that's helpful. All right. I think because I now know maybe the shoulder was TMS to begin with causes me to be angry and keep thinking about my shoulder, but you were helping me to put this obsession to rest. It's understandable that you'd be angry. I created this channel, this podcast, my book, all out of anger because I was so mad that I didn't have these answers. Okay, Throttle Torque says, I was told that sleeping on a soft bed is bad for the lower back. Complete garbage. Ever since I heard this, I've been overthinking and it's caused so much anxiety when it's time to go to bed. Should I be concerned? No, Your mattress plays no role in this whatsoever. I've slept on soft mattresses, hard mattresses. I've slept on the ground. It does not matter. Cavemen used to sleep on the ground. We've evolved from cavemen stock. You're fine. And this is the kind of thinking that people bring up because they don't understand mind-body thinking. So they just say, well, maybe that makes sense. And it sounds like it makes sense, but it's not actually true. No correlation whatsoever. In fact, it doesn't even make sense why it would be. Why does interfacing with a soft thing cause a problem? I mean, you sleep on a soft pillow. Does it cause a problem for your head? No, none of that's true. I hope that's helpful. I am not mocking the question, by the way. I hope everybody knows that. I am mocking the doubt behind the question that we all have so that you can say, good. I don't need to worry about this, because you don't. Okay? All right. I'm going to take one or two more questions, and then I'm way over time. So let me see. I'm going to get S's question in because they didn't get any in tonight. Hi, Dan. I've been seeing a regular therapist for almost a decade now, and I only found out I have TMS last year. Again, that's tension myositis syndrome, another equivalent for mind-body experience. I'm really hesitant to see a specific TMS therapist now because I'd have to start all over again with someone new and recount my whole life story. Would your online tools be enough for me to work through my current therapist? Or are there any specific modalities that you think we could work on to achieve improvement with TMS? We have been doing EMDR for a few years already, or do you think I'd have a better chance of recovery if I see a TMS therapist? Thank you. I think that the best path forward for you, first of all, I understand your question perfectly, and it's a very good one and helpful for everybody. You can do this with your current therapist, but you do need mind-body knowledge and experience brought in. My resources are a perfect fit for that. They won't interfere with what's happening in your therapy at all. And in fact, if there's one therapy they fit with best, it's EMDR. It's trauma-based therapy. So keep seeing your therapist. But yes, my tools will be a way. In fact, they go so hand in hand with everything you're learning and experiencing with a trauma therapist. It's a perfect fit. I say this all the time. I am not a mind-body informed therapist. I'm not. I am a therapy-informed mind-body expert. And the reason I do this is when I was trying to get better, there were all these therapists who said they could help me, but I was basically just going to have to go to therapy. And I was already in therapy. And I was like, I need something more. I need somebody who gives me mind-body expertise without messing with my therapy. I don't. So this is a perfect fit. I think we should talk. Or I would just go ahead and get the book or order the seminar or email me, dan@crushingdoubt.org. It's a perfect fit for you. Okay. Kasim says, that makes sense. Thanks. Beatrice says, thank you so much. S says, hi, Dan. Thank you so much for this live chat. Will it be posted on your channel after it's over? Yes. They're always posted on Instagram and on YouTube. I know I didn't get to every question tonight, and I'm sorry. We just ran out of time. In fact, we ran way over on time, probably further over than we usually go. But when this happens, write down your question. And as we get towards the end, I'm always going to defer to somebody who didn't get their question answered at all. So there is also one other way that you can do this. There's like I think there's a super chat function, which bumps your question up to the top and I'll see it faster. But I hate that because you kind of jump in the line. So in any case, the next live chat it's always Thursdays, 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific. I'm here almost every week. And it's been a pleasure. Again, sorry I missed some questions. Keep the questions coming. These were great questions, great discussion. And I hope that everybody's getting the book and that we get a chance to talk about all of the collective information we will share once you've read it. Okay? Thank you so much. Look forward to seeing you next week. Okay. See you soon.